So we've talked about in the first class that you guys weren't at the first class, but in the first class we talked about juggling, and we learned some juggling techniques, and we made our own juggling balls. And last week we talked about stilts, and we talked about how to make your own stilts out of a couple of different things. And so we when we talk about juggling, there is the kind of juggling that we did the first week, which was toss juggling like this. Oh, the man in the painting, that is Molière. Molière is, do you know who Molière is before I just go off explaining? So Molière is basically Shakespeare in France. So I studied a lot of theater in France, and I studied a lot of movement and clown and physical theater techniques in France. And Molière is like the greatest playwright of all time in France. And he wrote a lot of really, really funny and satirical shows. And he's really popular. Like I said, he's like basically like William Shakespeare level of famous in France. But he's also a really cool, interesting person. Like he had a very, very fascinating life, where he kind of managed to get by on his wits and his sense of humor a lot. And he's always been a very big inspiration to me. And so that's why he's back there. And then over here, that's Buster Keaton, who you have seen lots of videos from in my classes. This is a life mask. This is an actual casting of his face. A friend of mine is a makeup artist, and so he worked for Universal Studios as a makeup artist, and so he had access to all of these castings of famous people's faces. And he said, "Hey, I see that we have a casting of Buster Keaton's face. Would you want me to make a replica of it?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? Of course." And so that's Buster Keaton's face there. And then this, Groucho Marx, who is also someone that I have talked about a lot in Elements of Comedy. So Groucho was with the Marx brothers, with his three other brothers, they were a famous comedy team in the movies. And like I said, I've shown some clips of him in the past. But he also, before they were in the movies, they started in theaters. And so there's a famous movie that they made called Animal Crackers. And that was a stage play first. And so this is the hat that Groucho Marx wore to play Captain Spaulding, the character he plays in Animal Crackers. But this is the one he wore in the stage version on Broadway, not the movie version. Yes, it's the actual one. And you can see if you tilt it, so Groucho has a grease paint mustache that he painted on his face. And so you can even see that he would occasionally touch his face and then grab the hat, and he has the little grease paint stains on there. So that's a pretty cool little thing. And then this is just a poster of a thing from Circus World, where there was a congress of 100 clowns from every country on earth that attended this big conference at Circus World. And so that's a poster advertising that. So I have a ton of crazy knickknacks and nonsense all around the room here. I don't know if you see any of that. Hi, Kat. Just so you know, Kat, we're just kind of goofing off because we're gonna call it early today, just because there's so few people. But Liliana and Heather Rose got to asking me about all of the nonsense on my wall, so I was just sharing some of that. But anyway, on the first session of this circus at your home stuff, we talked about toss juggling, which is where you are tossing something from one hand to another like that. But there's two types of juggling actually that gets done in the circus. One is toss juggling, like I was just saying, and the other is called gyroscopic, which is a big fancy word for spinning juggling. And so this is a Diabolo, and what you do basically is you take these sticks here, and there's two sticks with a string that attaches between them. And with the Diabolo, normally, I'm doing this at my desk, but normally you would stand. So the Diabolo would be on the ground. And you want to take, I'm going to shorten the string here so that you guys can see what I'm doing. So basically, you want to take the Diabolo and you're going to roll it across the ground to get it going. And then you're going to give it one good roll towards your non-dominant hand to get it going. And then you keep it spinning by pulling on your dominant hand like that. So if I can, I'll try to get it going a little bit here, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So you roll it towards your non-dominant hand, and then you pull to spin. Now, the reason that you want it to spin is because, I don't know if you've ever tried to just sit on a bicycle without it going anywhere. If it's not spinning, it's going to fall right off of your string. So the reason that you want to keep it spinning is because that keeps it balanced on the string, and then you can do your tricks. And then what you do with that spinning Diabolo is a Greek word that means toss across. Diabolo means throw or toss across. And so that's what you're doing with this. And so you're going to take the Diabolo and you toss it from side to side. You can toss it to a partner and they toss it back to you. You can toss it up in the air and catch it. And there's lots of great tricks you can do with that. And I have a cool video I'm going to put in the chat here. I just need to look it up real fast. Wait a second. I'll show you a. No, that explains it. I was in the wrong thing. One of my favorite Cirque du Soleil acts is this Diabolo act, and this is, so Diabolo is a skill that comes from China, and there are these three female Chinese performers that do a Diabolo act that I've just put in the chat there. You can check that out whenever you want to. And it's really, really cool stuff. They do all kinds of crazy things. There is, in China, there's a really fantastic circus tradition. There's a town whose name I cannot remember, but there's a town where they have a ton of circus schools, and kids go there starting from like 4 years old to learn these circus skills. And there are a handful of circus skills that have been around in China for many, many, many years. There's a tradition called the 100 Entertainments, and a Chinese emperor several centuries ago decided that if any entertainment was going to be performed at the court, it would have to be one of these 100 entertainments. And so that emperor listed off all of the things that would be acceptable as an entertainment that you could perform at the court. And one of those was Diabolo. And so Diabolo still gets taught today at Chinese circus schools. And it's a lot of fun. You can do a lot of really cool stuff with it. But the game, and I put the game in the chat earlier, and so just in case Kat was not here for that, I'm going to pop it in the chat one more time. So as I said, this video is from another circus camp that I taught this summer. So you might hear references to something that you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. He didn't tell us about that. He said, oh, I told you about this previously, or we've been talking about this. So if you see any of that, that's how you know that's where that comes from, because it was from another camp. But Diabolos are great. You can purchase them very inexpensively if you like what you see. This one I think was like $15, maybe $20. So they're not super expensive at all. But like with all of the other skills I've been talking about, you can make your own at home. The way that I have always seen them made is if you go to the dollar store, like a 99-cent store or something, or Dollar Tree, they have dog bowls, plastic dog bowls. And if you put them together like this, and then with the help of a parent, drill a hole straight through. And then what you'll do is you'll put a bolt, like one of these little bolts. You put a bolt through there, and then you take a little nut. So you put the bolt through the plastic dog bowl like that, so that it pokes out like this. And then if you take that nut and then put that there, that gives you a little space in the middle, which gives something for your string to roll on like this. And then you take another nut and then you clamp them together. So you have two little plastic dog bowls with a little space in the middle caused by the nut that you screw onto the bolt. And then that gives you an exact replica of a Diabolo. So that's something you can make at home if you don't want to buy a Diabolo online. And then you can practice the skill and play the game that I have for you. So I was going to draw that out a little bit, but as I said, we have a very small class today, so I think you guys can handle that on your own. I've given you a couple of videos to watch. The Diabolo act from Cirque du Soleil, which is one of my favorite Cirque du Soleil acts. And those performers are really fantastic, and they're also very, very young. I think even Liliana might be older than all of the performers. So now that I know you're in 9th grade, you're an old person in 9th grade. Now I can make all of these old person jokes to you. But yeah, so that's what we had for today. I think we're gonna just call it a little bit early, since it's just the few of us for today. But you can check out the lesson, the game that I have, and you can check out the Diabolo Cirque du Soleil act if you want to on your own time. And yeah, like I said, if you want to make your own Diabolo, try working with a grown-up first, because it does require a little bit of drilling, and if you're handling tools and stuff like that, you want to make sure that you at least have the permission or supervision of an adult while you're doing that. Or, like I said, you can purchase them very inexpensively online. This one is kind of a fancier one, but I think you can get them for, if you go to higginsbrothers.com or Amazon, I think you can find them for closer to $10 or $12. So if you're interested in learning Diabolo, that's something you can do. But the game that I have included, the game helps you to get better at the Diabolo by learning how to judge tossing it. So part of dealing with the Diabolo, because like I said, it literally translates to tossing across. So the game is all about helping you to control the toss so that it doesn't end up flying all over the place. Last summer, when we were doing virtual circus camps, I was teaching a student a private coaching session with the Diabolo, and they were tossing it and tossing it and tossing it and tossing it, and it flew off and smashed right into their flat screen television and made a big crack right down the middle, and that was not good. So one of the lessons from that is make sure you practice outside. So, and that's in the video that I sent as well. Is you'll see me explaining how to play the game, and then you'll see me saying, make sure that you're playing this game outside. And so then I go outside where I'm playing the game, because yeah, that is definitely a hazard if you are practicing your circus skills, you want to make sure you're in a safe place for them to go wayward, so that you don't break anything. But yeah, so that's the lesson for today, is Diablo and the little Diablo game that I have for you, as well as the Diablo video. And I'm happy to give you more of a tour of my office if you want. But other than that, I think we can call it a day. Oh, Heather Rose says she wants more office tour. The poster beside Buster Keaton face. Oh, this is, so one of my favorite plays of all time is a play called Waiting for Godot. And that's from a 1980 something, 87, 85, 19 production starring Steve Martin and Robin Williams, who are two performers that I really like. And it's directed by a comedy legend called Mike Nichols. He was a famous comedian in the 60s, and he directed a lot of really fantastic movies in the 70s and 80s and 90s. But he directed the show, and it was starring two of my favorite performers and a friend of mine, Bill Irwin. Bill Irwin was also in that. Yeah, let's see. What else have we got? I think I showed you guys this before. This is my dog Coyote in his own personal circus tent. And then what else do we have? We have, this is Krusty the Clown action figures. And this is Bayern Rustin, who's a hero of mine. He is a civil rights activist from the 60s. And he is the person that actually taught Martin Luther King Jr. about civil disobedience and peaceful protest. But if you look at any picture where Martin Luther King Jr. is giving a speech, Bayard Rustin is always next to him or near him in some way. But even though he taught Martin Luther King Jr. and Medgar Evers and Malcolm X and Rosa Parks a lot about how to do civil rights activism, he never got to be the face of civil rights activism, because at the time he was a openly gay Black person in America, and they didn't want there to be confusion between the African American civil rights movement and the gay rights movement at the same time. So they never let him be a part of the face of the civil rights movement in the 60s. And so he's a really brilliant political activist and leader. This is a Sherlock Holmes hat from 221B Baker Street in London, where Sherlock Holmes actually lived, or theoretically lived. And then we have a bunch of toys and cartoon things from all over and throughout my career. And then this is a drum that is played at Trickster, or Coyote the Trickster ceremonies. So this is Coyote the Trickster on the drum. And then this is Dionysus, who is the Greek god of theater. And that's a Dionysus mask over there. So now you've seen my office. This is a brand new office too. I don't know. I've moved here just like gosh, about 3 weeks ago we moved in here. So everything is finally now just up. So
I think Kat has a question.
Yeah, Kat.
Well, actually, I was wondering if I could.
Did her video freeze?
Her video did freeze. I think Kat was going to say that they wanted to share something. That sounded like where that question was going. Yes, and it does look like
Yes.
that's.
Oh, okay.
That was what I was going to say. Sorry. what I have. The rest is a little bit gory, so I'm only going to share this part.
Okay. Very cool. I like the colors, the juxtaposition of the colors
Yeah.
there.
It's kind of a little bit
Very
Aztec
striking.
inspired.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Who was that? Who was that barging in, Liliana and Heather Rose? I saw a face come peeking in through the top of your screen. That's our older brother. Oh, older brothers are the worst. I can say that because I am an older brother, and I know how much hassle I've given my younger sister over the years. Excellent. Well, all right. Well, thank you all for showing up today. I really appreciate it. And I know we ran through the, oh, he wanted to see the mask and the hat. There they are. But thank you all for showing up. I appreciate you being here. I know we went through everything a little quickly because we had a smaller group, but that was the whole lesson I was going to give. I just did it a little faster than I would have if there had been more people here. So you got the same lesson, and you got to see my office. So I think that was a pretty nice trade-off. Hopefully we'll see you all next week, and we'll have some more fun stuff for you.
Right. Thank you, Mike. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.